worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we're a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular horror franchises. And today we are talking about Psycho 2 from 1983. And John, I know we've addressed this previously, but you had not seen this one before, correct? I have not either.
I have not. Turns out I'd seen the ending before. As soon as it was starting to happen, I was like, oh, I remember just like flipping by this on cable, but I had never seen the entire movie.
Yeah. And I know that I've said this on, every other episode in this entire stretch that we've done, but this is kind of why I wanted to do this podcast, where I was just like, I've never seen any of the Psycho sequels. You can't just watch them on your own these days. You have to have an outlet for your opinions. So let's start a podcast so I can watch Psycho 2.
The world must know. Not just that I watched Psycho 2, but what I think of it.
What I think of it, yeah. So, boy, we can get into it, but obviously, I'm glad that we started doing this so that I could watch Psycho 2, because, man, not bad.
Yeah.
I've got a couple little things, but my overall view was like, my goodness, hey, Dan McCoy and Kel, you were right. Both of you were like big on this movie, and heck yeah, this is a good movie.
Yeah, in the time that we're in now, where there's all these legacy sequels, that happen years and years after the fact, to run into one and be like, oh wow, this was actually really good for a movie that was never meant to have a sequel anyway.
Exactly,
not bad.
Yeah,
not bad.
Not bad.
I mean, some of my bigger complaints about it is that it's a movie. It feels more of a movie than the uncanny weirdness of the original. But it's just like some aesthetic stuff, really. I mean,
sure,
there are issues with the movie, but I think it doesn't try to be the first one.
Right.
And it pays homage to it in a way that doesn't hang around its neck like an albatross the way that Dr. Sleep does.
Oh, God. Yeah.
I couldn't help but think of that because I hate Dr. Sleep.
I hate it too, and we will not be reviewing that because The Shining is not a franchise, luckily.
Until the other ones go. Well, if you include Ready Player One, the sequence in Ready Player One.
And if we do the Mick Garris one, the Mick Garris TV version of The Shining.
Steven Weber one?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Well,
maybe
that's
a Patreon thing.
Yeah, if we do the Stephen King movies Patreon.
Right. Anyway, I was extra interested in the Robert Bloch novel of Psycho 2 because original novel, and it had absolutely nothing to do with this film itself, when in fact, even better, it was a giant send up to the Hollywood film industry and how they depicted slashers at the time, which is very, very, very astute, considering that it was only, 1982 or 83, and slashers were, if you're really paying attention to that kind of stuff, what's the heyday, 78 to 84 or so?
Yeah, they were it was in the midst of its golden era.
Right. So you could be cynical and say that they were on their way out around the time that Psycho 2, the novel, came out, but man, as soon as I found out that was the plot of his book and about how Norman Bates was rushing to Hollywood to make sure that the film adaptation of his story was not done poorly, I wanted to read that immediately, and I still want to track down a copy of that.
Yeah, I mean, particularly on the heels of the final season of the show Barry. I couldn't help but think of that when I was reading that description.
I have not watched that yet, but yes.
There's the thing there with, a killer and being on the silver screen.
Sure. Well, I mean, you got your Screams, you got your New Nightmares, you got your Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, all these very important films about stopping a film from being made of your own IP. Yeah, but I'm very curious about that, actually. But, Universal was just like, hey, man, this is too early to be making fun of ourselves. We're not there yet in how you make films. So we don't want to do that. Let's commission a whole new script.
Yes, by Tom Holland.
Yeah.
Not the Spider-Man one.
Exactly.
But yeah, who eventually went on to go do Fright Night and Child's Play. Big horror
Class
guy.
of 1984.
Oh, I still have never seen that. I need to check that out.
Yeah. He's kind of unsung hero, really. He doesn't get mentioned in the Wes Craven oeuvre and the Cronenbergs and that kind of stuff. But Tom Holland, he's done a lot for horror.
Yeah. And he also did Cloak and Dagger, a movie about a very strange movie about child endangerment, but
right.
With Dabney Coleman.
Yeah.
But that was fun.
Mm-hmm. So we got Tom Holland on board to write. And even more importantly, we've got the director, Richard Franklin from Australia. He directed a film called Road Games, which at the behest of a friend of mine, the aforementioned Dan McCoy, who I was texting with about this, he suggested I watch Road Games, which I did a couple nights ago. That's a fantastic, just kind of Rear Window-ish type of thriller based in a semi-truck in the Australian outback, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, the daughter of Janet Leigh. And you know what her credited name in that movie is?
What's that?
Hitch.
Nice.
As a hitchhiker, but Hitch.
Right.
You know?
Because I remember that's what he called her, but I didn't remember if that was the official title.
That was her name in the film. It's a great, like, kind of taut little thriller.
Yeah.
That Road Games. So check that out. But that's what kind of put him on the map in Hollywood. And he got the esteemed ask to do Psycho 2, but he was a extremely massive Hitchcock fan at the time. He visited Hitchcock on the set of a couple of his movies. There's in Road Games, there's a little part where Jamie Lee Curtis is going through magazines in the back of his truck, and there's like some nudie mags and that kind of stuff. And then there's like an Alfred Hitchcock Presents magazine in the back of his truck. So he was the man for the job.
Yeah, I also recommend Patrick is also pretty good. About a psychic coma patient.
I have not seen that
damage.
Yeah, I think that came before.
It's pretty fun. Yeah, I like Road Games a bit better, but and this also has a connection where they wanted Jamie Lee Curtis to play the Meg Tilly part as sort of an homage because it would have been Janet Leigh's daughter. But I think if they Jamie Lee Curtis didn't end up doing it, and I think I'm kind of glad that didn't work out as much as I like Jamie Lee Curtis.
Too.
I think that would have been a tell too early on, or like when you find out, you're like, oh yeah, okay, it wouldn't have felt as good. I think when one of the twists happened. Yeah,
the producer of this was Hilton Green, and he's the first AD on the first Psycho. And they asked him if he wanted to produce this, and he said, no, at first, and then he reached out to Hitchcock's daughter. Hitch had died 3 years previously, and she went ahead and just said, like, nah, he'd probably be really into this. Go ahead and do it. And, you know, that kind of blessing was enough for him to go ahead and go into production on it. But the big, I don't know if it's unsung or not, but the big hero of this film to me is the DP, director of photography, Dean Cundy, who, this man is amazing. This man did Halloween. He did The Thing. He did Jurassic Park. He did Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I mean, this guy's incredible. And so, yeah, he did a ton of John Carpenter movies and then came on to do Psycho Part 2.
Yeah, when he hits them Dutch angles, I was just like hopping up and down on my couch like Tom Cruise on Oprah, just hooting and hollering.
Yeah, I mean, he's fantastic. Oh, also Roger Rabbit, too.
Oh.
One of the greatest films ever, and I'm sure extremely challenging to do as a DP at that time. So, yeah, I mean, as far as kind of behind the scenes horror impressive alumni, this crew is pretty stacked to come out for Psycho 2.
Yeah.
And they had a lot on their shoulders to do. They were given a budget of $5 million, which is still not that much. Even at that time, especially coming off of, you know, how important this film was, not a whole lot, even less than 5. It went on to gross like, I think 90 million or so, something like that, which was, as usual, a point of contention with Anthony Perkins on the other side of this film. But yeah, $5 million budget. It opened on the second weekend as Return of the Jedi, which, man, I pity that entire crew for that one.
Yep.
Never made it to number 1 at the box office, but when you're up against Return of the Jedi, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you thought of the opening, but it didn't start strong for me.
Agreed.
Because I thought just re-showing this shower scene, I immediately thought, oh no, what are we in for here?
I was worried it was going to be, again, like this whole, like, really going, remember the first one. And especially because it opens with the shower scene. And it also, while lighting some stuff, while culling some stuff up, like the the spinning drain shot into the eye.
Yep.
Just kind of whip past that. But when it retains the pan from down to Janet Leigh up into the hotel room to the money and then to the window. And it's like the money doesn't, I mean, we talked the last time about how the money was a cool, like, red herring sort of thing. But it just feels strange in this case. It is, I know you're just reminding people of Psycho, but if you were going to do that, which I don't think you needed to at all.
Not at all.
You just cut to the house.
Yeah, and this was, this is obviously well before we had to do an entire movie about, remember this thing that you liked, which I know we complain a lot about, both on and off mic. But this was an early example of that, and I immediately had like a sinking feeling in my chest. And I do think that this opening is probably the worst part of the movie for me. Because I just don't need it at all. It's
not great. And I think the other thing that was bothering me about it is the soundtrack, Jerry Goldsmith's soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
There are times where it kind of, I don't want to say mimics, but is similar to Herman's score, which doesn't bother me. But it's just that the music is ever present. And when I found out that this was originally intended to be a made-for-cable movie,
right,
that's what the soundtrack feels like a lot of the times. Like, it's just constant incidental music over everything. And I know, like, stylistically, we don't do that as much now.
Except for Christopher Nolan. Yo!
But it just made the whole thing seem cheaper somehow for me. It just seemed like more like cable TV style.
Sure. Yeah. And, I can't help but think, like, he wants to show off probably his favorite scene in movie history, and the studio wants to get people right back in. And of course, we also have to contextualize it of like that's 1983, which is 23 years after the first film, but they don't live in an age where you can just like rewatch. Like we talked about that a little bit with Friday the 13th. Like you don't just rewatch movies willy-nilly as you do now. Not that anybody forgot the shower scene, but at the same time, it's a little less ubiquitous at the time. But still,
there's nothing wrong with it. It's just like, fine. Right.
So we jump into we go color, which is important. This whole film is in color. We get the flip over to color, and we've got a courtroom scene where Norman Bates is being considered for release. And there's a great side view shot of him smiling as the camera like zooms in. This is our first shot of Norman Bates. You always need a good intro for your protagonist here, and it's fantastic. I love that shot.
Yes.
But a woman is protesting his release. So in the end, Norman gets to go home. Robert Loggia is our psychologist here, I love that guy.
It's so rare that you see Robert Loggia not yelling.
Oh, I
feel
know.
like most of the movies I know him, he's just so he's very, very subdued in this, which was nice, unexpected. Like the whole time I'm just waiting for him to really blow up.
Yeah,
even more subdued compared to the woman that's throwing a fit about Norman being released, who's Vera Miles. Reappearing in her role as Lila from the first one.
Yep.
And we also learn that he has killed 7 people. They put a number on it.
Yep.
We have seen 2 and we've heard of 2 more. And then, we hear 2 more at the end. So there's 3 that, because then this one plays with how he killed his mother. Because in the first one, it kind of alludes that he killed the mother and the husband in the bedroom. But that's not really how it goes down here. So then there's another one that's kind of floating out there. So
Bates Motel, CBS this Sunday. There you go.
Yeah. Put a number to that. And she's absolutely against him being released, but they said, hey, you're it seems like it's a combo of, you're fine now. Like you've done the treatment. And also we don't have money.
I kind of dig that they put such a pin on that, actually. Like we don't have the funds to take care of our mentally ill people, so we're just gonna like let you off on the street. It's fine.
Yeah. This again, like I had a little bit of a hard time getting into this movie because their solution to him being out is, all right, well, what we're gonna do is the state, I guess, has been in charge of the motel and your house. So we're gonna drop you back there.
Yeah.
You're still in control of the hotel, though you don't work there. And we got you a job as a fry cook. Like that very, very little of that makes sense to me.
Not at all.
But okay. I mean, they say like, oh, sorry, we don't have like a nurse to check in on you. And Robert Loggia is also like, you don't have to stay here.
Yeah.
Why is any of this still available, and why is all his stuff still there? Don't know. Fine.
All the stuff still there is definitely confusing to me. Like, I guess you could just say like, hey, we're taking you back to your house. We're not taking you back to the hotel. Is he put in charge of the hotel?
He's still, because he has hiring and firing capabilities.
There you go. Yeah.
But it is just a bummer about getting older. That my first thought was like, well, what about the mortgage payments? He must have owned it, so then he didn't have to do. Sucks.
Oh man.
But so I was a little bit like, why would you want to go back there? Like, well, hey, here's where you murdered and all your insanity is. Good night, bye.
He didn't have anywhere else to go.
That's true.
The swamp,
a halfway house or something.
Sure.
Nope. You're staying here.
Yeah. There's a ton of great imposing shots of the house, and already like with just that photography of the house, like I got pretty on board after the disappointment of just showing the shower scene. The house shots were fantastic. And Norman sees immediately curtains move. And of course I had to rewind it to make sure I could see something in the window. And of course there is an image, maybe mother, maybe not, in the window.
The movie doesn't suffer from this. This is just a thing I would like to see is when Norman Bates arrives at the house, he's got an armful of groceries. He's went to the grocery store. And like you see, he bought Total and stuff like that.
It's a lot of cereal.
Yeah. A lot has changed from 1960 to 1980.
Yeah.
And like, I want to know what his supermarket experience was like. I want to see Norman Bates' supermarket spree.
Right.
Just because how strange that all must have been.
Absolutely.
But I'm glad that they spent like enough time with that. And they let just Anthony Perkins' performance show his awkwardness in everything rather than just be like, what's the video game when he walks into the diner and he's like,
what's a self-checkout?
There's a man trapped in the radio. What is this?
Exactly.
Like unfrozen caveman lawyer his way through modern life.
Yeah, but I mean, the jumps in technology from 1960 to 1983 are pretty profound, but you're right.
Specifically in cereal. Like, he's a captain now? Crunch is a captain?
Well, I mean, by that point, you do have the crunch enhancer. From it's osmotic. Coats the flake, doesn't allow it to get soggy, Anyway, but Norman walks in. Loja says
memories are more likely to reoccur here, but you know how to handle that now, don't you?
Which I do enjoy that, because it's kind of like, we know we're putting you back in here, but we've equipped you with some sort of coping mechanism to talk yourself down, just in case you start getting that urge to kill rising.
You can call Robert Loggia if things get real bad.
I want to be able to do that. I want to call Robert Loggia if I get depressed or murderous.
Are you depressed?
Yeah.
Call 1-800 Loggia.
He just starts screaming at me on the other end of the phone.
He's in one of those TV ads with just the soft lighting, and he's wearing just like a pink silky robe. Call Loggia.
You down? You don't have your shit together? Call Loggia. and he basically just screams at you. He doesn't do anything nice. Yeah.
He's like a Texas football coach or something. Right. It's great.
So this is where they do definitely say, like, they're running low on funds with the state, and Loggia says he'll check in on him tomorrow. And at this moment, I definitely was right on board with Anthony Perkins just falling right back into his role. He was just so effortlessly awkward and weird, and he is Norman Bates right away in this, to me.
Yeah. And he does such a good job, because it's you as the audience, and I think the movie plays with this pretty well, where you and the audience are torn between kind of like, okay, well, Norman's going to go back to being Norman, right? Like, this is going to we want to see this, but also sitting there watching, going like, oh, he's doing so good, and like, I can fix him. He just needs help.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, it's the Hitchcock, oscillating allegiances to what you think of these people.
Yeah, and there's a lot of changes in people as this movie goes on, which is where I was not expecting it to be as twisty as it was.
Right. He finds a note left by Mother that says, "I'll be home later to fix your dinner." Mother starts talking, says she's not feeling well, and she might actually end up going to kill Norman. And at this point, he opens the door and sees Mother's hand on the ground twitching, because he's gone up to the room at this point.
Yeah, he has a flashback of when he killed Mother with poisoned tea.
Yes.
And again, like, so what we know about this from the first movie, he killed his mother and her boyfriend with cyanide. And this one, no boyfriend. It's just the mother. And he did say they were in bed, and he did manage to kill her in the bedroom. Right. But that also makes a little bit more sense or at least it's slightly less horrifying to be like, hey, Norman, this guy and I are having sex. Will you bring me some tea while this is happening?
Sure.
But also, like the little boy in that, the little boy in the Norman flashback is Oz Perkins, Anthony Perkins' son, and a horror filmmaker of his own right, who directed The Black Coat's Daughter, which is pretty scary, and Gretel and Hansel, which is a movie.
Yeah. It looks nice.
It certainly looked nice.
Yes.
The dude likes atmosphere. I'll give him that.
Yes.
That one didn't do it.
He also did I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives Inside Your House, which I did not see. But I think that's in that same style of like really slow, pretty type of film. So yeah, Oz Perkins. Who knew?
But so we get him, like, already he's starting to remember. The memories are coming back, and he's forced to reckon with what he's done.
Right. But before he can reckon with anything, he goes right to the diner where he's got a job set up for himself. A woman behind the counter says,
I'm the one who urged Mr. Stadler to give you the job. I think it's very Christian to forgive and forget, don't you?
I sure do.
So do I.
That's Mrs. Spool, or I'm sorry, Miss Spool, who is the one that really rallied for him to work there.
Right.
Which I also like that. It doesn't seem like it's that bad in the movie, but working as a line cook, working in a kitchen can be very stressful. And I like the idea of like, okay, you're released. Let's take you back into your insanity womb. And then why don't you work a high stress job?
Right.
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like we don't have the funding to help. Yeah, bye.
High stress, low pay, not enough credit for what you're doing. And hope you don't flip out again. I
would like to see him work in the kitchen of the restaurant in Jason Goes to Hell with the big woman that was owner of the restaurant. Like, that would have been such a perfect dynamic, because he would have just been like, yes, whatever you need me to do.
Please.
He would have made the best Jason burgers.
Right. Sure. Outside, after his first day of work, there's a woman named Mary, and she's still having trouble with her boyfriend, and she's on the phone with him. It's raining outside, and Norman offers to help, offers her a ride and a room, and takes her to the hotel. Of course, it's still empty. At this point, he lingers on the number 1 key for just a moment, decides on a different one, and that she can sleep up at the house. And this waitress, Mary, not Marion, obviously, Mary, played by Meg Tilly, sister of Jennifer Tilly, who has gone on to be very beloved in the horror community by being she's the mother of Chucky. I haven't seen a lot of the later Chucky films. She's
the bride of Chucky.
She's the bride of Chucky. Gotcha. Yeah. But what I love is that she's so fully embraced that. And
oh yeah.
Yeah. So Meg Tilly in this film is her sister. She actually had such a miserable time on this set that she acted very seldomly afterwards, and now I think she's a writer instead of an actress.
Yeah, there is, and all credit to my information about this goes to Stacey Ponder from Gaylords of Darkness.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which unfortunately that show just
stopped, which is too bad.
Which is a bummer. You should check them out. But she did a thing because the story is that Meg Tilly. Now it's factual that Meg Tilly and Anthony Perkins did not speak on set.
Correct.
Like, they had a falling out. They did not speak. But the story was that Anthony Perkins overheard her being catty, that she had never seen Psycho before and didn't understand why he was getting the praise. Which is, I mean, like, on its face, that's an absurd thing. It's called Psycho 2. You wouldn't go, well, I'm sure there wasn't one before this. I'll just take this role and move on.
Right.
But there's other stories that he was having he was being a bit of a diva because she actually she's good in this.
Absolutely.
And that she was getting some attention because she was still pretty new. I don't know, One Dark Night had come out. That was 82, and she's good in that, even though that movie's, it's all right. I think that's a Rob Hedden jam. Oh no, it's Tom McLaughlin. That's from another Jason reference. That's, Jason Lives. It's got a great ending. But anyway, they had a bit of a falling out. I guess the director wanted her fired as well. And so he and Anthony Perkins were kind of treating her like crap, but they had already shot a bunch of her scenes. And
like, it was too.
Yeah, you would have had to do too much. So don't believe the hype. Justice for Meg Tilly.
Exactly. But, and also I feel like it's important to bring up at this point, like Anthony Perkins had, for the 23 years between Psycho and Psycho 2, he was not keen on being typecasted as Norman Bates at all. And like Tom Holland wrote a script specifically from Norman Bates's point of view as a character study to make sure that they could get him back. Although the studio, Universal, was not necessarily like, just make Psycho 2. Like, we don't necessarily have to have Anthony Perkins on this. The creators really wanted him. And so he took the role because of the great script by Holland, but at the same time, he had been like kind of poo-pooing the whole idea of being Norman Bates for like 20 years now. So you've got him kind of coming in, looking to, I'm sure, reclaim a little bit of spotlight and bask in this role that he's resented for a long time. So I'm not absolving him, but he's definitely coming in with extremely complicated feelings about being Norman Bates and being in Psycho 2.
It's kind of fitting for this movie because I do think for the changes that this movie makes, like the twists or whatever, you can see the reasons why these people are doing that. Like they're ridiculous. Like the Vera Miles stuff, the Lila. It's like absurd. You're like, okay, I see where this is coming from. Yeah. And we can get into that later when it happens, but for some of that stuff. So it's kind of fitting that, everyone has their own problems that they bring to sets, and
for sure,
it doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
Except for Meg Tilly. She's great.
She's great.
She's perfect.
Yeah.
She's untouchable.
Yeah. She was 22 and early in her career and just showed up. Like,
she is a baby in this. And like, I have such like a paternal I don't know if it's because she has this like kid from Flight of the Navigator, Steve Perry haircut thing going on that I have such this like paternal thing watching this where I'm just like, just be careful. Oh no.
Right.
It's not like I don't know.
Yeah.
I had this very like, I just want you to be safe.
Absolutely. And she has to play these scenes against versus with whatever you want to say with Anthony Perkins from, which is just it's kind of a thankless job, going in there, especially as a 22-year-old.
Yeah. And like I said, she holds her own.
Absolutely.
She was very, very captivating. Like I was unsure how that was going to go. Like just the tone of this had already I wasn't so sure, but then she really sells it.
Yeah. We cut to Dennis Franz. Warren Toomey.
Oh,
my goodness. So I was never an NYPD Blue guy, but you couldn't be like growing up and watching TV in the 90s guy. I mean, like a kid in the 90s. All I know is that he showed his butt on network television in the late 90s, and that was a giant scandal. So I don't have any particular fondness to Dennis Franz, but he's just been in the brain for so long. Yeah. And seeing him in this was pretty fun.
He is just wonderfully sleazy. He's just so disgusting. You can smell the cologne he's wearing.
Yes.
That he's just sweating off in every scene.
Right.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. But I do like this kind of plot element where Norman just shows up and he's like, maybe I should just get the hotel going again. And Warren Toomey is basically just saying like,
people come here to party. They stay a few hours and then they leave. What more are you going to ask from a motel so far from the beaten track, huh?
And he's got like this like handful of poppers and like drug paraphernalia and stuff. Like people come here to
It's a no-tell motel.
Exactly. Yeah. And what I do, it's completely within character for Norman Bates to be like, I'm so shocked and offended you're out of here right now.
Yeah.
And like I bought that absolutely as a character motive.
What I like is that it's not tied to any... This is a stupid statement. I'm going to make it anyway. If Rob Zombie made this movie,
oh God,
it would be so heavy on the like, but I'm religious and this religion is going to get in like this Christianity is going to ruin you. Whereas this, it's just sort of like, no, that's just not a thing that we talk about.
Right.
That's just the polite society. Although to be fair, his mother, whoever she may be, just does not care for women.
Yes.
Like it's just constantly like this whore and this. Yeah. But to be fair, again, every woman in this movie is very mean to Norman.
That's true. Yes. Yeah.
Is lying and duplicitous. So I don't know what to take from that.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So it could have been a Rob Zombie movie. Hey-o.
Not enough screaming.
Yes. And not enough of his wife.
I don't know. I said screaming, though.
Yes,
so
there you go.
No, Sherry Moon Zombie.
Sherry Moon, there you go. Anyway, Sherry Moon Zombie is up at the house. I mean, Mary is up at the house somehow and sitting in the dark. And she wants to call her boyfriend to work things out. Norman just kind of watches and he goes into the kitchen and he pulls out a loaf of bread and it's home pride. That was my family bread. I did the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. You'd never do that at a loaf of bread before, but I did it, because I ate home prime.
That's the magic of Psycho 2.
Exactly. And, this began a running section for me, just like I believe one of our listeners on Instagram, Chumps, was just like, I want every sandwich in this movie now. They just started eating sandwiches, and I wanted every sandwich while I was watching this. So.
This is a very sandwich-heavy series. Because there's all the stuff in the first one about the uneaten sandwich, and then her eating the sandwich with Norman, and this is a sandwich heavy.
Sometimes at 9 p.m. or so, and I'm sitting in my basement watching this movie, I get all Dagwood on this, and I want myself like a big ass sandwich that I can like squash down. And man, think about it a lot.
No, I'd rather have the Norman. Like, I also like that Norman doesn't eat grilled cheese sandwiches. He eats toasted cheese sandwiches
because that's Australian.
Grilled is too ethnic. That's too right. Ooh, too spicy.
Yeah,
I just want it toasted, please.
Toasted. I believe that's an Australian thing, perhaps from the director. They call it toasted. In the Down Under.
I don't know. I've never been there.
He serves sandwiches and milk, just like with Marion in the first one, and he does have this amazing just moment. And I'm so glad that they only do this once.
Do you have a knife?
No, I'm afraid. I don't. I just moved back here after being many years away, and I forgot to bring any cutlery.
And then, I love because later when he's at the restaurant, he's just using a knife, no problem.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it's because he's at home. It's the home knife that's the problem.
Yeah. And do you think that this is the same knife that killed Marion? I mean, maybe
you'd think that would go into evidence, but the way that this has worked, maybe they're like, you know what, we should give him his knife back.
That was the moment where I was starting to think, like, who's looking after this house? Did they not like clear out all this stuff? Did they leave his butcher knife in there?
He's gonna want this when he gets out,
it's
and
a keepsake.
We'll just clean it off for him.
Yeah.
I mean, we did see at the end of the last one how the cop, was nice, and he's like, he's cold. I'm gonna give him a blanket. Maybe they're like, you know what? Let's give this place a once over and return his knife. Like, it's small town living. Yeah. Try that in a small town.
Oh, God. Topical.
And their relationship in this and like how it blossoms is great because there is just a lovely push-pull of her freaking out. It doesn't seem like she knows who he is.
Right.
He's just a weird old guy who's friendly, but there's also an undertone of kind of romance, or is there? I think the movie handles it pretty well because it seems like it's kind of going that way, then it doesn't. But at the same time, I'm not even sure Norman thinks it's going that way. I think he just wants a friend.
Right.
But, I mean, you could read it a few different ways.
Just like in the first film, he just wanted people to talk to sometimes. He wanted people over for dinner and talks. And the talks. And that's fine. I can't remember if it's in this scene or a subsequent one where he does literally say, "It's okay, I don't kill people anymore." And I don't care. Like, I'm a pretty open person. However, if I'm sitting there having a triangle cut sandwich with somebody who just drops the line, "I don't kill people anymore," not sure I'd be staying there. However, later we know why, but that bugged me at the time.
How casually he describes the death of his mother.
Yes.
I liked it, though, because it didn't feel like it was... It felt kind of natural for Norman that it's still like distancing himself from it. And it's like, well, I poisoned her and, yada, 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 killed my mom.
He yada, yada, yadas. He Elaine's the death of his mother. I love that.
Yeah. But it made some sense. It didn't feel like they were trying to just like shoehorn it in or trying to make it cute. It's just, I think it's Norman not wanting to just come right out and say it.
So back at the diner, Norman still really wants Mary to stay at the hotel. She's having second thoughts about it. And in the first kind of like bigger tense set piece, Toomey shows up at the diner and starts giving Norman a whole lot of shit. I feel like the entire diner is playing Pac-Man because that's how the sound is mixed here because it's 1983 and Pac-Man's a new thing. So you hear that sound.
Well, Pac-Man fever was sweeping the nation. There was probably a lot of carriers in there.
That's true. And the director, Franklin, is the one who's playing the arcade machine in that sequence. So he's giving himself his own little like Hitchcock moment with his back turned. So Toomey starts harassing Mary and we tilt up to the order wheel where the diner receipts are coming in and it just says, "Don't let that little whore in my house again. Love, Mother." Yeah. So
immediately my first reaction was to be like, okay, well, we know he's not going crazy then because we saw the note outside of it. It's like when we were talking with Michael about editing for the audience versus editing for the characters.
Yes.
And in our episode of about Saw 6. Because I'm like, okay, well, because it exists outside of him seeing it. We know it's real, so someone's messing with it.
Yeah.
I like that because the movie then doesn't necessarily become like, is this all in Norman's head or not? But it's more just like, how badly is this fucking up this guy?
Yeah.
And I think that's a little bit more of an interesting dynamic than just like, is he crazy or isn't he? Is he the one doing the murders? Not. I mean, there's still like a question that he might somehow be involved, but I think it doesn't necessarily absolve him of everything, but it makes it a little bit more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That there are actual outside forces coming to get him, not just in his own head.
Exactly. So Toomey keeps harassing Mary. I just remember at this shot, it's just like this high shot in the diner, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Norman gets into a heated, tense exchange with Toomey, and he accidentally burns the head cook with grease. And that was just one of those dumb, like, I know how dumb this sounds, but like when you've been on set before and you only get the shot like really quickly and that's all you have to use for the edit. It's such a very fast shot, but I was just like, I know a problem they were facing right there in that edit, right?
Yeah.
In that moment.
Like it's not entirely clear what happened, but you're just like, oh, in his rush, he bumped something and grease.
And they didn't quite get the shot they wanted, I'm sure. But he tries to explain that the note set him off and basically he's been given the rest of the day.
Chill out.
Go home
think
and
about
chill.
what you've done.
Yeah. Which, I'm shocked that not that people don't deserve second chances, but when you bring in a man who's, again, murdered 7 people in a high stakes environment, who knew that the second day that he's on the job, he has to take a half day.
Yeah. This all happens pretty quickly.
Yes.
And I think it's also though, Toomey was an asshole.
Oh, completely.
And, so I think they know like this sucked, maybe didn't handle as well, but just cool off and we'll get Toomey out of here.
Yeah. I do love the next scene, though, because Mary shows back up at the Bates Motel and she just says, I thought you were wonderful. Offers her dinner. She says she wants to go straight to bed after a shower.
Of course.
She gets in the shower and he watches her get into the shower.
Is that him or is it somebody?
There you go. Yes, we're led to believe. Correct.
You see an eye, and it also is very much like it doesn't try to recreate necessarily. I think there's like a couple of shots that are similar.
That's true.
But then it's like, hey, here's your boobs, everybody.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Don't worry, we're going to show boobs.
We're finally in this era. She goes downstairs, hearing someone play piano, and cut to Norman looking into a mirror, just kind of like staring at himself. And I come to find out that this was one of like a couple of sequences that Anthony Perkins just like really insisted on adding to make sure that we feel like a lot of sympathy for Norman, to make sure that it's like very much from his point of view and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, it works for me. I kind of dug that a little bit.
I think there's a danger with the kind of character they're doing here. Norman Bates is a milquetoast guy, like a kind of meager or meek, and then he's got this overbearing mother. And it's if you get rid of the overbearing mother and he's this kind of non-entity, that could easily just like go in the background. You know what I mean? Like he's not that interesting. He's pretty inert, but I think they keep it interesting enough. And I mean, even throughout, not just even when maybe he starts losing it a bit towards the end, but he plays him. He's still a human being. And like he even like standing up to Toomey seems like it does. It's if you just were to describe the character of Norman Bates and then he's like, oh, and then he stands up to the hotel manager, you might go, well, that doesn't seem right. But it also, he kind of would hold his own against Sam a few times.
Yep.
When they were talking during the interrogation at the end of one. So he's still capable of doing things. And I think that makes him a little bit more interesting of a character, and more, you root for him a bit more, like you identify with him a bit more, rather than just being like, everything is happening to me and I'm not reacting at all, or, I'm incapable of dealing with any of this.
Yeah. He's about to do something to me, to me. Yeah. There you go.
I get it. I'm on the trolley.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But no, I get what you mean, because sometimes those characters can get so boring when they're just like, the director thinks that they're deriving sympathy for a character just watching somebody get run over all the time. Right.
Or it's just like in different thing, but like Dark Knight Rises,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, hey, I'm not going to be Batman for most of the movie. I'm just going to be over here like doing nothing. And there's like, I don't really care. Whereas this, like, it's Norman Bates. It's not like that he's taken out of the action and everyone's just acting around him. Like he's still
in the thick of it. Yeah. Speaking of Toomey shows up drunk at the hotel. He starts prowling around a whole bunch, and
what I love is that he's just like yelling at him like, "Hey, psycho!"
We have title.
Do you get it?
Is Norman up there, and is there a psycho too? But yes. So yeah, he starts tooling around trying to provoke Norman, frankly, and he starts getting comfortable in a robe and a cigarette, and he goes down to the office room. I couldn't tell if he was just like, screw you can't fire me, I'm back here again. But he actually does start packing up all of his stuff. Mother appears for the first time. Yep. Cuts him in the face, stabs, screen goes black. And it's a pretty, this was on my mind going into this film, but 1983, slasher boom.
Mm-hmm.
There is, I believe, 2 cuts of the knife here. One across the face, one that we don't see penetrate. It goes black. So the first kill is still pretty Hitchcock. I don't want to say tame because it wasn't tame at the time that Hitchcock did it, but like it's on that level of like a first kind of Psycho.
Yeah, it's not as gory as some of your 80s slashers are.
Mm-hmm.
And what I also like is that when Toomey like sees the figure of Mother, reacts, and then it cuts to Mother, cuts back to Toomey, and it's clearly like a prosthetic. It's an application on his face so that the knife can cut. It's almost like they put a stunt man on a mask or something like that. And the mask looks pallid, sweaty, and dead. And it's not one of those where it's like, well, it's just going to be a split second. It's there for a bit.
Yeah.
So imagine if you're Dennis Franz and they're like, oh yeah, no, this awful looking dead thing that's dead but somehow still sweaty.
Yep.
That looks like you
right.
enough that we're going to keep it in the movie.
I guess that's what happens when you're an actor in movies like this. It's just like, yeah, that mask does look like you. You look awful.
It looks like someone drowned Dennis Franz and then like brought him back to act in this shot. But let's
make a trip to the swamp first.
So he gets slashed up.
Yeah. So Bill, I just keep calling him Robert Loggia, but his name is Bill, visits Norman, sees an image in the window, and Norman says, it's Mary to Loggia. So it starts like placing that idea in your head that Mary might end up being our new mother in that flippy sort of way.
Yeah, and then he's outside painting the Bates Motel because trying to fix it up after he fired Toomey.
In the yellow.
Yeah, and he's painting yellow, and I had a little bit like, I don't know if you've ever seen the color photos of what the Addams Family TV show
Absolutely.
house looks like.
I love that stuff
so
much.
Bright, it's like bright pink because that's the way it looks in black and white. Where I was like, that's the color of the Bates Motel. It's yellow, really? Okay. No, I mean it's your hotel, Norman. Like it's fine, but
yellow is a scary color. The yellow wallpaper, that classic short story.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
It's just I know you think it looks sunny, but I just think it looks cheap.
Right.
Sorry. Looks like you should be opening a garden store. Slam on garden stores. Sorry.
I like garden stores. I spend a lot of my weekends in garden stores. Mary's applying some mascara, and she notices a peephole in the mirror in a great shot where she's staring right into the mirror. She sees it in her peripheral vision, and the camera pans over, and there's a little light coming through. And of course, in this moment, you're like, why do you not flee after this?
Yes.
Again, this is my first time through. I had no idea, but I started getting like a tad frustrated here on my own.
She just sees the people and she goes outside. She's kind of freaked out by it. And that's when she encounters Robert Loggia in Anthony Perkins. And she's real standoffish and he's all like buddy with her. So their interaction just seems really strange to Robert Loggia, who's like, hey, I'm going back into town. Do you want a lift? And she kind of looks at Anthony Perkins like, oh yeah, go have fun.
Yeah.
It's all fine.
Yeah.
But I like that kind of quiet tension. It's not really played up, but it's a nice interplay between the two actors of sort of like the particularly because we don't know what Mary knows at this point.
Sure.
Or what we're going to find out later. But so to us, it does seem like she's this naive, young woman who's kind of in over her head with this stuff. I mean,
right.
she is, but not so naive.
Right. Yeah. Robert Loggia goes to see the sheriff. Wants to tap Norman's phone and basically just leaves this meeting with the sheriff. Just keep an eye on Norman, but in the meantime, we get another really hefty sandwich in this shot.
Okay.
Well, let's discuss this sandwich. Pretty meaty, huh?
Okay, let's put aside state overreach, surveillance overreach, to focus on what's important, and that's the sandwich.
Yeah.
This one I'm not so sure about.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what's overflowing there. It's got toppings.
Yeah.
But it looks like uncooked pork.
Yeah, that meat.
I don't know what.
I was a vegetarian for 17 years. I'm kind of, in the last 5 years, I'm back to, semi-selectively eating meat again.
You're off the wagon.
Yeah. And I'm loving it. But, but some of this meat looks a little gross. And there's occasionally times when I'll see something like that and I'm just like, well, I still want to eat it. Just I want to try it. I get that kind of vampiric, thirst for blood on that meat.
Yeah. At no point did I say I wouldn't eat this sandwich.
Let's not split hairs here about this sandwich.
I'm just saying it looks uncooked. Did I say that would stop me? No.
I kind of want a bite of that sandwich.
Yeah.
The right mustard on that meat. It'd be great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally. It's like ceviche. Yeah. You just put some mustard on some uncooked ham. Right. It cooks it. Yeah. It's fine.
Give me some stone ground.
That's Midwestern ceviche.
Right.
Stone ground mustard and some ham.
Yeah. I'm set. And all these sandwiches come in these nice little wrappings to keep them moist. But there was the whole just keep an eye on Norman at this point, and Robert Loggia leaves satisfied, but he'd be more satisfied if he got a bite of that sandwich on the way out. But
yeah, he probably is I need to get me a sandwich.
Yes. So Anthony Perkins looking ripped here. He
extremely
is looking.
Yeah.
I mean, he's looking skinny guy ripped, which is what I've got my eyes on for my 50s. Basically, if I can ever just get myself to the gym, this Anthony Perkins, man, boy.
Yeah.
Good on you. So
because in the first one he didn't look very structurally sound, very very skinny man.
Yes,
but he's been beefy as hell.
Putting some time in with the old weights.
Yeah, for being 60.
Exactly.
And whatever, but
yeah,
he's looking good.
Wonder if I can get there without doing any work.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, yes. So I think this is the bit where Norman is painting the house and he runs upstairs to find someone inside, and he walks in a shot very much like Arbogast going up the stairs, and mother's door is open. He walks in, and it's very old-fashioned decor, very finely appointed. Finds a letter. It just says, "Get rid of that slut or I'll kill her."
It's now everything was wrapped up before. Everything was covered in tarps, but now it's someone has been living there.
Right.
And leaving a note about that damn whore.
Exactly.
Which was going to be the TV show spinoff.
Right. Yeah. And then we've got the bird's eye camera view of Norman walking out, and it's the first time we kind of see the rest of the house. So they kind of opened up what the rest of the Bates house looks like in this shot, which is pretty great.
Yeah, and it ends with a very Tenebrae camera shot.
Yes.
That had come out just the year previous.
Right.
But Norman's at the window.
Yes.
Kind of, he's losing his mind. He's freaking out because mother's stuff's here. He thought he saw her in the window, which is what leads him to go to the house in the first place. All her stuff is here and laid out, and there's a note that says, he gets the mean note. And then he goes to the window, and the camera pans out, or zooms out through the window and does a 90-degree turn down and goes along the house and then zooms down to where a couple of kids are breaking into the fruit cellar. And I thought that was a very grandiose move.
Well, and it's so in the spirit of Hitchcock too.
It was cool. Yeah, it totally works.
It's very much a Hitchcock shot that he would have done if he had the hardware to do it. I'm sure he'd be into all those giant techno cranes and stuff like that. I remember watching that shot for the first time. I was like, are they hiding a cut in the shingles? Are they hiding a cut? I was just very much looking at it, but no, just no. It's fantastic.
A couple of teens breaking into the fruit cellar to smoke some weed.
Yep.
And to have sex, I guess.
And to make time. Yeah. So now we're at our 1983 slasher.
Yeah.
Feel right here. This is where we yank Psycho into the 80s of these teenagers smoking pot, wanting to have sex, and the guy gets slashed and the girl gets away out through the window.
There's a lot going on in the scene because when they get there, he's got a rolled up mattress. Yeah. He's got a rolled up mattress underneath the thing. He's like, come on. And he pulls it out, starts untying it. I'm like, that's disgusting.
So gross.
He's been here a bunch and like, is this like his latest conquest? Are they dating? Well, like, I don't know, but he's got a dirty mattress on the floor of a fruit cellar of a murder house. Mm-hmm. And while he's doing that, though, she has just picked up a really old potato that's got tons of roots coming out of it. She's just really admiring it, having a great time. Just a fun old time staring at this potato, which I wish I could do that. I wish I had that much joy in my life. I was like, look at this potato.
It's the 80s.
That's some shit.
Yeah.
The Super Nintendo hadn't come out.
Pac-Man was just starting. It was that circumvent, like it was the end of the potato and into the Pac-Man era.
That weird crossover Pac-Man potato era. Mm-hmm. But then they're just sitting on the mattress to smoke pot. Oh, okay. So it's just so they don't have to sit on the ground. Right. Like that's fine. But then he starts petting.
Yep.
I have partied in a mortuary before. Yes. I had a friend whose dad was a night guy at a mortuary, and that's where we would go hang out. But that didn't happen.
Right.
And it's also not the dirt floor of a basement in a murder house.
Sure. Yes. John Myers, Mark 1 over this guy.
Yeah, so, hey. That's all my Tinder profile says, like, hey, I ain't fucked on a dirt floor.
In the Bates Motel house.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm no longer infected. But yeah, then sure enough, Mother shows up and starts descending upon them, and Girl's able to scramble out.
Yep.
Boy, not so much.
Yeah.
Trips on a wood pile, gets slasheroonied.
Mm-hmm. As the window shuts, his fingertips go down. Makes a little mark.
Leaving streaks in the dust.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. Pretty cool. Norman tries to show Mary a note in Mother's room. It's no longer all set up. It's kind of like back to the way it was with the sheets over it and everything.
Yes. Oh, we should probably mention that during this time, Norman goes up to the attic, thinks he hears something in the attic.
Yes.
Not just in Mother's room, but he goes up to the attic and gets locked in.
Right.
Seemingly locked in. Yes. And so it sort of adds that layer to, is this just something he's subjectively experiencing? Are we just with Norman and he's locked into the attic of his own mind, man?
Right.
Or is,
No, that's important.
While Mother goes and kills, or is something else happening?
Right. Cops come to ask Norman about someone getting killed in the fruit cellar, asked to see it themselves. The deputy very quickly declares that it's all clean, which always makes me laugh. But Mary admits that she's been inside, and Norman says he hasn't been down the fruit cellar since he's returned from being in prison. And the deputy notices an open door. Mary declares that Norman was with her walking in the fields all day as an alibi. So she's already she's trying to be on his side. Norman just straight up.
It's starting again.
His casualness about it is really disarming.
Sure.
Because he's like, hey, just BT dubs. I'm going nuts again.
Right.
Don't know if
this is happening.
Just FYI, as per my last email, I'm going crazy.
Right.
So after she covers for him, the deputy is, or, the sheriff, deputy, by the way, is Tom Holland.
Right.
The screenwriter, Tom Holland. But the sheriff's, he's buying it, but not really. He's skeptical. Something's going on with these two wacky. What's, what do they got going on? Because they seem like a what would you call it? Like two people that seem mismatched, like a couple that's odd.
A weird couple?
Weird couple.
Yeah,
it's a weird couple.
Yeah.
So, there's the way he's like, this weird couple. Yeah, Anthony Burkett's kind of like, why did you lie for me? And she's like, because we don't have an explanation for this. And I don't think you did it. So we got to figure this out. He's not like, why did you lie for me? It's more like, why did you lie? Lying's bad.
I love that.
Do that.
Yeah.
Again, just the, super, super sweet man.
Mm-hmm. Wholesome.
It's imagine a version of Psycho, but it's Goofus and Gallant. Like,
right.
Goofus is overpowering Gallant.
Right.
But sheriff goes back to sheriff station, and there is Mila. Vera Miles is back, and it's like, hey, that's where you learn that she's Loomis. She's Vera Loomis. That she married Sam.
Yep.
He's dead. She and Sam were married, and she's in town. She's cruising in town to yell about Norman Bates. It's already all over town.
Yes.
How much he killed that boy.
What I also love about this is that, clearly in 1978, John Carpenter, Dr. Loomis, after the characters in Psycho, but the nature of franchise filmmaking means that we're getting a Loomis in Psycho Part 2, which is 5 years after Halloween. So now, because I'm a little bit more of a child of Halloween than I am Psycho, I wasn't that sophisticated as a 12-year-old when I first saw Halloween or whatever. But I associate Loomis with Halloween more so than Psycho.
The signifier has now replaced the actual thing.
There you go. Yes. Yeah. So we got Lila Loomis as our. She's turning into more of an antagonist now.
Yeah, she's making her stuff, and the sheriff's not really buying it. He says,
"But if Norman Bates is crazy, there are a whole lot of people around here running him a close second."
And then back at the house, Norman is freaking out.
Yes.
Because he's getting confused. He doesn't know what's happening. He's convinced that probably he did it. In perfect, 21-year-old logic, Mary's like, you know what you need? A drink.
Yes. I mean,
that will solve it.
Hey, occasionally
you're losing your shit.
Occasionally, that's some 43-year-old logic too. So I can say
you need some booze. That'll help you be less crazy. Mm-hmm. She's like, you know what? He's like, mother didn't keep booze in the house. She's like, I'll go. I bet Toomey had some. I'll go down and get some. Goes down to the base hotel, to the parlor, to the scene of Janet Leigh and Anthony Perkins' great back and forth in the first one. And who is there but Vera Miles,
yes.
who is Lila. Then it's here that we learn that they're in on it. Not only are they in on it, Mary is Lila's daughter.
Yes. And this is why she did not flee when she saw a peephole, or when Anthony Perkins said, I don't kill anymore. All these things that were frustrating me, I was just like, okay, here we go. That
they are now trying to deliberately gaslight him, to mess with him, to get him to be either self-commit again, or I think that's not the goal, not actually murder someone again, but just to get him put away. But I don't think Lila's not really that upset that a kid died, that a teenage boy died, because she does get kind of ramped up to this almost cartoonish villain, not as cartoonish as Norma Bates. This is all speculation from me, but I got the sense that so she married Sam. She only met Sam because her sister died. And that probably was weighing on her. She named her daughter Mary. So she's haunted by the past.
Yep.
In the same way. And I mean, Mary has a whole speech about I'm not living for dead people anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And so I liked that thematic sort of twinning of them that way. That now she's in this position of being in the shadow of the person who's come before. And she's really trying to, use her daughter to manipulate Anthony Perkins to go gaga again.
And whether it be a Psycho sequel or not, I think that this is a fun idea for the entire crux of a sequel to Psycho, or just a sequel to a horror original, where it's just that gives you the out to sympathize with Norman Bates, because you're trying to sympathize him through this entire film. I feel like,
right?
It's very easy to brush off the fact that he killed 7 people before this, and because of Perkins' performance, and so you're wanting him to just go about his life. You're wanting him to succeed. And I think it's a fun idea of this woman. There's never any good reason to do this, but I understand her motivation to do this completely. Exactly. This is not far-fetched to me. I mean, it's far-fetched, but it's I buy this as a plot device.
Yeah. I mean, you get, like I said, she's got her daughter named Mary. This is such a huge thing in her life that, Sam's gone. Who knows what she's doing with her time now?
Yeah.
That she's created this just amplified it in her head, and now that he's out, cannot abide by it. And it does, for you wanting to, I kind of want to see Norman go nuts again. This gives him a reason to that. Okay, well, we know the force acting on him now. It's Vera Miles, but you're now more on his side, where it's don't do it. Don't give in, because they're at this for revenge reasons. Yes. And I would hate, you're trying, you're struggling.
Yeah.
And so this twist, which also happens an hour into the movie.
Sure.
Really sort of okay, the pieces are set up on the board now. Now I know who's who for the most part.
Yes.
Is there will still be some questions.
Yeah. In keeping with tradition, we see another toilet.
Yes.
Close up in a bathroom, and the toilet and shower are overflowing with blood. And he does say,
after I killed that kid in the cellar, I used it to clean up the mess, and then I flushed it down there.
You didn't kill anybody. You were locked in the attic.
They end up pulling a t-shirt out of the toilet, and a whole bunch of blood comes flowing out. Now,
yes.
So Norman in that moment thinks that he killed the kid in the basement.
Because, he always blacked out when that would happen.
Right.
When Mother would take over, he would always black out. So he's like, that's got to be what happened. This is happening again.
Yeah.
Because his gaslighting doesn't require him to be actively involved.
Yeah.
To an extent. Like, if he can't remember it, then that doesn't mean it didn't happen to her.
Right.
That he didn't do it, because that's the way he's operated
That's the way
before.
Mother operates. Yeah. This is where Mary notices someone looking at her through the peephole while they're in the bathroom. After seeing the eyeball of another person, it's apparent that there's another person kind of like lurking around in the house here who we don't know who it is.
She sends him down to make some tea. And that's when she notices she looks at the peephole, and then there's, an eye comes into the peephole.
Yeah.
It's not Norman, though. So he's down there. It's like, so who is it?
Yep.
But I will say, I think this toilet thing, just because we talked so much about the toilet I talked about the toilet thing so much. Sorry, I'm dragging you down with me.
You're just flushing me down
again,
with
talk
you.
about like, it's dragging him into 80s slasher stuff. Because before it's like, oh my God, it was shocking that you saw a toilet. This is the 80s. Here's a whole bunch of blood coming out of a toilet.
That's true.
Look, if you're going to listen to this podcast, it's going to be for one or two things: sandwiches and toilets. That's it.
One goes right to the other one.
Yeah.
At this point, they decide to bed down for the night. Norman just starts appearing over Mary as she's sleeping, holding a knife. So once again, at this point, if I didn't have that scene prior that I knew that Mary was in on it, I'd be like pulling my hair out. Like, why are you not leaving here? So,
well, because now there's the added thing of like, okay, does Norman know about it?
Right.
Like, is somehow Norman aware of it? Because like for him being, like I said, they don't keep him completely inert. They do keep him at an arm's length.
Right.
At this movie, so you still don't fully know what's going on with this guy. And so you're like, is he freaking out? Is he relapsing? Is Mother back? Mm-hmm. Is he figure out something's going on and this is like a vengeance thing? Or does he or is this some like strange protection thing?
Sure.
Where he's worried, like I got to stay strong and watch over you. But it seems like it's a little bit more, he's losing it.
Yeah. He does declare, that he's confused again. And she just says, of course not, and so she's trying to I feel like she's still on board with the plan at this point, though that changes. She's
seeing how it's affecting him and it's maybe feeling about it, and she embraces him.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like their relationship, like it's there's love there. It seems like, that is a warm embrace, but it's not sexual.
Right.
It is almost like this inverse mother, mother something, like an actual caring thing. And she's hugging him. And he's like, "Oh, you smell real nice."
I do.
Yeah.
What do I smell like?
You smell like the toasted cheese sandwiches.
Swish.
Yes.
that's how you flirt, baby.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's actually very sweet. And I think this might be a little bit more of a turning point for her, where she's like, she already in her conversation with her mom, she's already like kind of against it.
Yeah. The doctors took away all the good memories of Mother except those sandwiches. Next, Loja visits Norman. He reveals that it is Mary and her mother who are leaving the notes around. So Loja has come to this conclusion. Mary confronts her mother finally about the peepholes and such. She denies it, despite admitting to doing everything else, which is kind of funny. Tells Mary to dress up in Mother's clothes one more time and he'll go over the edge, which is just so cruel.
Yeah. Well, and this the whole time as their voices raised in the actual hotel where Lila is staying, they're being monitored by a different kind of disgusting hotel clerk. He's almost, he's extremely sweaty, but he's almost plastic looking. Like he's like the dude from the Silent Deadly Night 5, the toy maker.
Yeah.
What was his name? Pino. Petto.
Oh, Pino Petto.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But yeah, just like this creepy officious, like he's Goofus to Norman
there
Bates'.
you go.
I'm sorry. He's Gallant to Norman Bates' Goofus.
Yes.
Yeah. That he's like, no, I'm the good proper one. I don't murder anyone.
Right. Yes.
Use a coaster. But he's overhearing it, and I really like the sound design here because the music sounds ominous, but the music that you're hearing is actually just a vacuum cleaner.
Yes, yeah.
It is overpowering everything, and so I wasn't sure what was going to happen with this because they've spent a lot of time with this guy listening to what's being said.
Right.
And you can tell that mother and daughter are definitely not getting along.
It's not working out anymore. Cut to the graveyard. We're digging up Mother's corpse to show Norman that she's there.
Robert Loja's got some pull in this town. He can get people's phones tapped. He can
pulling up bodies.
Like, yeah, let's just exhume a corpse. Yeah. Like, come on.
What I did love in the production of this scene, though, is I believe they're in the foreground and the corpse is in the background. They're digging up the grave in the background. And then we end the scene on a button of a close-up of the corpse. And I was just thinking, man, you're going to build that puppet. You're going to show it in a close-up. Yeah. Like, especially if you're working in the effects department of that movie, it's just like, no, that thing needs to be showcased. Please.
It's nasty looking.
Yeah, it's great.
And yeah, he doesn't want to look at it at first. And I think it's at this point that he starts referring to her as Mrs. Bates.
Oh.
Like that gets brought up a few times. Because he's already said, Norman has already said that the one behind this is his real mother. Because he's gotten at least one call.
Yes.
That's like his mother, and it couldn't have been anyone else. And so that's why leads to Robert Loggia being like, we gotta dig up a body.
Yeah.
Now back in the house, he confronts Mary.
Who's making lunch for them.
Who's making lunch?
Making sandwiches.
Not a sandwich.
Lunch? Yes.
Yeah, it's some kind of, you see Minute Rice in the background. She's cooking something in a pan. I bet that's not going to sandwich.
Yeah.
And the phone rings and Norman answers it. You get a tell here. This is like the first time that you see it, that whenever he's on the phone and he starts talking to Mother, he'll move the phone to the other ear.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Mary is convinced that it's Lila calling.
Right.
She's admitted that yes, that happened. But he's still like, no, Mother, absolutely. When she picks up the phone, no one's there. She comes out with it, tells him all about what's been going on. And I like this moment here because she's like, I can't do it because
it wasn't fair for us to be doing what we were doing to you.
Is that the only reason?
Again, like, it's this thing where you could look at, like, that he's like, oh, do you, are you in love with me? Do you like me? But it also is just like this desperate, like, just please tell me I'm good.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I just need to be reassured.
Exactly. They've cut back to the sheriff showing up. They've drugged the swamp and they've pulled a suitcase from the swamp and it is Toomey's. Actually, no, that's incorrect, right? Like, they pull a car out, and in the trunk is Toomey's body.
Well, they find his suitcase as well, because that was when the scene with Lila earlier, we skipped that. She was there with the sheriff. It was like, go dredge the swamp. That's where my sister was. Go find the body, dredge the swamp. And if Friday the 13th has taught us anything, the cops do not dredge stuff. Right. If you're like, oh, that's Jason guy who's been living in the lake, we're not going to go look. No, you lost your boy in the lake. Yeah, he's gone. He'll show up.
Totally.
But they sure enough, they go and dredge, and because there was some confusion in the first one about where it was, but it said like it's far enough away that they had to drive there.
Right. But that there again, like I had trouble last time just like knowing the geography. Is like, is the swamp on the property? Like, I think it's supposed to be on the property, but you're right. Like, they drive there. Whatever.
I think yeah, it's a little bit of a distance, but at this point, you've got the mighty duo, the power team of Mary and Norman is in effect. So you feel the sense of them as a force, because the sheriff is really kind of questioning her, like, why are you covering up for this guy, without saying that. But she holds her ground. She's standing up for him. They find Toomey's suitcase and find Toomey.
Yeah, and everybody's revolted by the smell of him.
Just like in life.
Robert Loggia watches Lila run into the house, and from a very, very high angle with a squawking bird sound here, I noticed. Like, maybe they're little birds homage. Lila gets inside, and under the shaking light, she finds a wig and a knife under the rock down there in the fruit cellar. That's where she's been hiding her stuff. Exactly. Yeah. Norman comes in his mother gear, or you think it's Norman. Somebody comes in a mother gear, stabs her. The most brutal kill of the series so far. A knife through the mouth and through the back of the neck. It's pretty impressive and pretty shocking, really, because you don't associate this kind of kill with a Psycho movie. Yeah, this happened in Psycho. In Psycho 2. I was not expecting, because like you said, the Dennis Franz thing was like, it was a slash on the face. I thought maybe you just see knife go down through the teeth, past the gums, look out back of head, because here it comes. Right. Yes, and evidently Vera, the actor, was like pretty against this, because she had never been a part of something like this, and she was an older person at the time, and just like was really fighting being in this kind of shot, and she did not like going out like this, but she did. There is a quote from Tom Holland later that after, like years after this movie was made, it said like, we kind of did Norman and Vera dirty a little bit. Yeah, but I'm okay with it. I dig it. You You got to cater to that 80s slasher audience at this point.
Yeah, but so now, and then Robert Loggia comes to investigate, and there ain't no one in the basement.
Nope.
Norman shows up, but not too long after that, and so there's a lot of who's doing what now, because the main antagonist of the movie that we know about out of the picture.
Mm-hmm. This is where the police pull the car from the swamp, and they open the trunk, and Mary tries to get Norman to leave, but he's just happy they're like playing piano. At this point, Mary finally admits to herself that Norman is mad. And Loggia says that Lila has been making calls from the room down the streets, and Norman is fooled, thinking it's Mother again. Norman starts to thinking it's Mother on the phone telling him to kill Mary, and now Mary is running downstairs to find the Mother outfit. It's a great shot running over the bricks in the basement again. And it also just sort of happens to reveal the face of a body. Mary puts on the dress, tries to convince Norman that she's Mother standing in front of him, and there's no way that she can be on the telephone. And did this remind you of another movie that we have covered in this series?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, it's got a very Ginny from Friday the 13th.
Part 2, correct?
Oh, yeah, also part 2.
Friday the 13th Part 2 ends in this very similar way.
Yeah, which I like that in 1960, Alfred Hitchcock made this very sort of psychologically adept thing where like, oh, here's these mirrors to show the duplications of characters, and the house sort of operates as like an id, ego, super ego with the different layers.
With the 3 layers, yeah.
Yeah, and in the 80s, psychology was like, if I dress up like his mom, he'll think I'm his mom. It's this very like Flintstones understanding of the human mind, and I love it.
True. That's a little bit more on my level, frankly.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I did not do well in school. And Mary is like really upset by this, that
she doesn't like doing this.
Yeah. But that he's still like, he's totally just on the phone. Like, yes, Mother, sorry. The horror is talking. I'm busy talking to my real mother.
Sure.
She runs up the stairs, not knowing that her mom is dead at all, runs up the stairs to get on the phone and try to explain that it's me. No one's on the phone. It's just me. Can't get him to do it. And then a figure appears behind her. And it's Robert Loggia.
Yeah.
Like, he's just been sulking around the place, and he sees someone in Norma Bates' outfit. And he's like, hey, what's going on? And then, oh, what a misunderstanding. She stabs him in the stomach. Turns around, startled, stabs him in the stomach. Whoa, he goes tumbling over the banister and lands on a different banister on the knife.
It's so good.
Oh, man. Oh.
Because I remember, like, as soon as she stabs him, I was frustrated because I don't like it in horror movies where someone gets accidentally killed. Like, the shock turnaround, like, I guess this isn't quite like that, but like when people who are on the same like team, for lack of a better word, like one person accidentally kills the other one, that always frustrates me. It feels like a cheap shot. So I was a little bit bummed at this, but then I started pumping my fist when he landed on the knife, on the banister.
On the knife.
That totally worked.
It's so ridiculous. But yeah, it's, again, leaning into the 80s slasher stuff. Like, that was a complete ridiculous kill. But now, like, the one other person that fully knows what's going on is out of the picture.
Yes.
So now you're left with her still dressed as Norma Bates, like kind of freaking out. Norman is like, oh, hey, I've had to cover up for your murders before, Mother. I'll do it again.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I'm not. It's me. I am not your mother. And he's like, no, Mom, I got this. I don't want to. So he's like kind of coming at her a bit, and she starts stabbing him just because she's afraid.
Yeah.
In the hands. Like, it's like she gets him in the stomach a little bit first, but then he's like, no, it's fine. Why did you do this? I'm fine. He's got his hands up. Ugh. And she just keeps stabbing him. And it's just so upsetting because, you want both of these people to be okay.
Yes.
And like, it is a what a misunderstanding, but you can see like all these different plans that they had just sort of fall apart, or that she had anyway, or just in the devastation of these plants crumbling. It's just these people caught up in that, and they go down to the basement. She's kind of backing up and stabbing him all the way. Then the cops show up.
Yep. They do what they do
save
best.
The day by just shooting her. 'Cause they're like, oh yeah, that person that's dressed up like it's probably Norman or like someone else that's been killing these people. Fire away.
Yep.
And
I mean,
then Mary goes down.
To their credit, I suppose, she is wielding a knife like
she's
over his body.
Bloody.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I totally get it. It's a bummer because like you really like Mary and her character and the changes that she's made, and she seems like a genuinely positive force in his life.
Right.
And It's just tragic.
Yeah. So yeah, the cops end up shooting Mary. At this point, there's a sheriff that ends the movie much like the psychologist in part one. Just kind of like tells the end, tries to make it sound, but I mean, it makes it worse in a way because the sheriff just like embellishes the entire story. It makes it even more tragic because he's saying straight up, just Mary went crazy, started dressing up like Mother. And she was behind it all.
She's taking the fall for all of it. So like, thanks, Mom, for getting me involved in this.
Right.
Now everyone thinks that I'm a lunatic that has murdered everyone.
Yeah.
And
and she also
just
saw
so sad because she was the nicest person.
Yeah, and she also saw her mother's body in the fruit cellar, which we
they covered it up in the coal. Whoever killed her mother.
So in the end here, the cops have pinned it all on Mary, and Norman is just kind of let go. I mean, I guess as he should be.
Yeah, I mean, because they also have the greasy doll like concierge from the other hotel guy from the other hotel is there.
Oh yeah.
Telling what he heard. And yeah, it sounds kind of damning in this context. She's like, she said if you were going to go back to the hotel again, you'd be sorry.
Yeah.
Anthony Perkins is shaken and left to go back to the hotel. And you get this kind of just quiet scene of him kind of going back and looking around and just kind of taking stock in what's happened and like finding the removed stone in the basement and putting it back down. And then there's a knock at the door.
And you know what?
And well, actually before he does that,
he makes a sandwich.
Sits down. He makes a sandwich.
Yeah, he makes a toasted cheese sandwich. But there's another set place for somebody else, which is interesting. So
yeah, then it cuts to a just ridiculous process shot of like clouds behind the house. Very low angle shot shoot up at the house as this old woman figure starts walk towards the house. But she's huge at the beginning, so it looks like Norman. I am Giganto, Mother.
Right.
I have finally come for you. I am your real mother.
Yeah.
Made me think of when I was a kid. My sister and I we liked Ghostbusters, but we were also a little bit afraid of it. Like I couldn't watch the library ghost. At the beginning.
Okay, yeah.
She used to scare the hell out of me. And there was one time that I was spooked by something, and so I was sleeping in my sister and I were about the same age, and I was sleeping in her room, and my mom like came to tuck us in, and she's like outside in the hallway. She's like, "Choose the form of ghost." And we're like, "Mom!" It's like, "It is Mommy," and she just like came in. So that's all I was thinking about during this scene was just like, "It is Mommy, Norman." Yeah. But as she gets close to the house, she shrinks down to regular size. Perspective works that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And comes to the back door, and it is Mrs. Stool.
Yes.
Ms. Stool.
From the diner, who said that it is the Christian thing to do to forgive and forget, which is true.
Yeah.
She sits down and explains that
the name Spool doesn't mean anything to you?
No, should it?
It was Norma Bates' maiden name. The woman you thought was your mother was my sister.
She had Norman at a very young age and gave him up to the sister.
Because she was going away to an institution.
Exactly. But I do love how she phrased it. By the time she got out, you had your troubles too. They've both been having the troubles, which is great.
Yeah. Which, I mean, you kind of get a sense. I was thinking about this after we recorded last time, that when he's having the conversation with Janet Leigh in the first one, and he talks about like how awful insane asylums are.
Yeah.
And like after that, you're like, oh, right, he was there. Like when he was a kid, they put him there. That's why he hates it so much.
Sure.
But then like he's back in there after killing this. Yeah. So she's like, yeah. So I mean, this whole thing is into like nature versus nurture. Interesting one. It's like, no, you've got the Bates gene.
Sure.
Or I guess the spool gene in this case, since it's on the mother's side. And while she's talking and telling this whole story, he's like, hey, how about some tea?
Yeah.
Moves aside this bag of Lipton, excellent product placement for Lipton tea bags, to the tea canister he pointed out earlier. This is the tea he used to serve his mother and kill her. Again, just you want to leave that line around.
Sure.
And I'm sure, 30-year-old tea is great.
Yep. It's great with poison in it too.
What did the state do to your house, man? I don't understand it. But yeah. And so he's like, okay, yeah. So he makes her some tea while she's talking about it, and talks about how she doesn't have, she killed some people when she saw that they were skulking around and trying to hurt you.
Yeah.
I had to step in and murder people because you're the only thing I have left.
Right. So she has been this little old lady. Well, not little old lady, but this lady has been the person who has been killing people around the house for the last hour and a half or so.
So she took out Vera. She took out Toomey.
Yep.
She must have been the one to take out the little boy too, or the young boy.
Right. So as she's explaining this, we go to an incredible bird's eye shot up and over the kitchen as Norman makes her tea, but the tea is not enough. The poisoning the tea is not nearly enough for the screenwriters. And I would agree, because we got to reach for the shovel, and Norman does what only he can do, which is bash her in the back of the head, and she goes down on the kitchen floor. So he has just met his real mother, and within 5 minutes has murdered her.
Yeah. And like because she takes a drink and it's like starts coughing a little bit. And just it's in one solid shot of him just like walking around, picking it up, walking to the other side of her, clonk so hard that, well, the chair falls apart when he hits her.
Yeah.
And so it's either he hit her so hard that he broke the chair, or he bought that chair from a Brett the Hitman Hart yard sale, or John Kramer built that chair. Because we all know, based on the Saw movies, his ability to build chairs. Not great.
Yeah.
Those are the only three options. There's no other logical option. It's only those three. But yeah, she's down, and then he's like, and this whole time, like there's nothing coming out of him. Like there's not like anger or anything like that. It's just like, oh, okay. Oh, you're my real mom. All right. Okay. Clonk. And then he picks her up and starts chatting with her about how, like, don't worry, I'll put you to bed. We'll get this all taken care of. Hey, I'll even say your prayers for you. And then you get the same shot, the Arbogast, the God's eye view shot of the hallway, which if you have not been to our Instagram page yet, a big shout out to James Gannon for drawing some amazing artwork for us for the first episode of that same shot.
Yes.
But you should definitely go check that out. But so it's him carrying his mother, instead of from this fruit cellar, it's back to the bed. And it's not until he's completely out of sight that you hear mother's voice.
So good.
Yeah, just chiming in that same bullshit about like, you suck, and I got to keep you safe from them goyles. Put me by the window so I can keep an eye on you.
Yeah, that was my favorite part. Put me in the chair and tilt me out the window so I can keep an eye on you and make sure you're okay.
He's at peace with this. Like this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yes, he wants this. That wraps the whole thing up. But so, how do you feel about this last twist of it being some random woman who's the actual mother of Bates?
I don't even buy that. Like, I have no idea if that's even true or not.
Right.
So there's no evidence. It's just this person claiming this, and who, she could very well be his aunt, but that could all be, I don't know. But it's just that Norman, you're like, okay, so Norman came through this okay. Yeah. And he didn't. It's again this sort of tragic. He's like resigned himself to this fate, but it seems like it's also what he really wants. Like this is that
he feels better now.
Yeah, like it's a weird thing. I don't know if you've known someone like this, but like I know at least one or two people who've absolutely married their mother, and I don't mean that in the super gross Norman Bates way, but more just like I know people that have had extremely dominating mothers that have then gone on to get extremely dominating partners. Right. And it's like, this is just kind of what I know.
It's comfortable
for good or ill. Yeah. It's just like, and I think Norman has been, so abused.
Sure.
That this is like, okay. Yeah. This is fine now. As long as it's just him yelling at himself, but as long as it's a mother doing it, he's on board.
For sure. And at first I thought it was like a lame twisto type of thing. But by the time it was apparent that, the role that she was going to play and how it was going to bring him back to first Norman, I loved it. I thought that was great. And after I was thinking about it for a couple of days, I came to the same conclusion as you did, as in like, it almost doesn't even matter if what she said was true.
Yeah.
We just needed to get him to hear, and it could be anything that he was like, kind of like clawing around for, like he wanted this to happen, which is also funny considering Lila's plan succeeded. And Lila's plan succeeding was also what Norman wanted. A lot of dead bodies could have been circumvented if they would have just gotten together earlier and just
got on the same page.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, you want me to go crazy, I want me to go crazy. I just don't really want to go to prison, but it'll be cool if we can get here together.
But it's also star-crossed lovers sort of thing, opposites attract, where it's like, you are super pissed at me, I hate me. Like, we can make this work. I need another figure to yell at me constantly. this could we could
why
make
don't
this happen.
you just be my mother, Lila? You know, this could be cool.
Yeah. I just need you to yell at me. That's all it is.
Right.
It's fine. But yeah, because I think if it was something where she's like, turns out I'm actually your mother. Let's make this work. And a little like heart dissolved down.
Totally.
And, Iris
I Love
down.
Lucy style.
That would have sucked. Yeah. But it's like whatever that twist is supposed to be. Like you said, I think it's really just there to set up that Norman is not untouched by any of this. And is it something that like, was that always going to happen? I don't know. But like to pretend that all this stuff wasn't going to affect him would be pretty silly.
For sure. And it's worth noting that the mother character is the only murder that he commits in the film. We go almost 2 hours into a Psycho sequel and he doesn't hurt a fly until... God, I said that literally without thinking of the ending of the last episode.
Nice work.
The previous film.
It also asked the question, leads to the question is, we say that like, okay, this is kind of what he wanted. This is what he was used to. But there's a certain amount of like, was there a certain amount of like, well, this killing needs to stop. And I can stop it. The him being able to relive that, I got to kill my mother again, but then still have her around and do that. Does that mean he's going to continue killing? Don't know, probably. But, was there a certain amount of like revenge in that for what happened to Mary? Because that Mary would still be alive and none of this would have happened if this woman wasn't killing people, quote unquote, for Norman.
All right. Well, let's honor our dead real quick, and then we'll come back with some final thoughts. Warren Toomey, played by Dennis Franz. Face slashed and stabbed. Josh, played by Tim Mayer. Hands crushed by window, stabbed multiple times in the back. Lila Crane, played by Vera Miles. Stabbed through the mouth. Dr. Raymond, played by Robert Loggia. Stabbed in chest, falls over banister. Mary Loomis, played by Meg Tilly. Shot by police. Emma Spool, played by Claudia Breyer, bludgeoned with a shovel. So yeah, I am glad we watched this movie. I am. This was a lot better than I anticipated. All of y'all who let us know that we'll like part 2, you were correct.
You are absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad I finally got around to watching this. I'm not going to say it quite equals the first one.
Oh, couldn't possibly,
maybe I'm just too like, I don't know. I'm just too stuck on that movie, really. But it has every right to be like completely overlooked sequel status.
Yeah,
I think like more people should absolutely watch this movie.
I've heard people complain about, or I've heard a complaint about Better Call Saul. One of the problems with Better Call Saul is by the end it just became Breaking Bad. To a degree, that's too, because it has to tell a certain story about Breaking Bad, but like stylistically and all that stuff, it's very similar. Mm-hmm. And this doesn't do that. Like this doesn't, like it has these little homages to Psycho, but it's not like tonally, it's completely different.
Yep.
All this stuff. And so I think that was a very smart move to not try to just recreate, like, here's the same characters, but it's a different movie. It's a different feel. Mm-hmm. And I think some of that is amplified by just coming off of the Saw movies, which are very much like the same, they're part of a very corporatized Hollywood at that point. And they had a show Bible, they were supposed to look X, Y, and Z. This is free enough to kind of have its own mood and its own vibe. And I think it's better for it. Yeah. Because it's not just trying to have that feel like it's weird to have Psycho become a whodunit. Sure. When that's not really like what the first one was. But I was absolutely on board with it. And like the twists got me, I was kind of, when it went like, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense that this is why this is going on. Oh, she's her daughter. That's kind of cheesy, but I don't care. I'm on board with it. Like,
I'm still digging it.
It's the thing we've talked about before. Like, if you're having fun, it doesn't matter. And I think this movie was done well enough that like I said, like all the stuff at the beginning where I'm just like, why is he back in the house? What is this? Don't care. I've immediately moved on. Like, it's great.
It's like we point that out on a podcast because we're doing a podcast.
Yeah, I got to fill time.
And you're talking. Yeah,
I have to do a podcast.
We have to do it. No, it's just it's like I'm going through my thoughts as they were having in a linear fashion. Right. And not that I cared that much, but that's what I was thinking exactly.
Yeah, but the movie just yeah, don't worry about it. Moves on, and then the performances are fantastic. And I think
oh my god, Perkins, so good. I would argue he's better in this movie than he was in the first movie because I feel like he had more to chew on.
It required different things from him, and like the character had to do more, so it was a little bit more interesting in that regard. But I don't know. If I'm torn on that, but I can definitely see where you're coming from. I do like that. Allegedly, when this was going to be a TV movie, there was going to be Christopher Walken, which would have been hilarious.
That. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah. I'm glad it wasn't, but good grief. Yeah, great movie. And like I said, suggest you get on it. And moving on, I will say I'm very happy that everybody seemed to be stoked to listen to the first Psycho episode because I was thinking like, this is not as like fun as Wishmaster type of thing. But like, everybody seemed to like get into it and write to us and stuff like that.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, one of our listeners, Anime on VHS, said it was one of the first slasher movies that he saw when he was younger, and I was just thinking like, man, that's a treat.
Yeah.
Like you start with such a classic.
That's great.
You go from Psycho before you hit, all the Freddys and stuff like that. But, yeah, thanks for everyone reaching out. I know Kel was super excited to hear us talk about this one because he's a big fan of this one, potentially even saying he might like it more than the sequel. I don't know, might be one of those folks. So.
More than the original, you mean?
Or yes, more than the original. For sure. And then the aforementioned James Gannon, friend of the show, listener, he did the pencil and ink, I believe, illustration that went up on our Instagram, and he's going to do one for each of the films as he follows along with us. So
which is right. Thank you so much. Yeah,
what he does for the
great
second
stuff.
one. So I love that. So yeah, everyone, let us know what you thought of this sequel. I already can tell that people were genuinely surprised at how much they liked this one. Some people, I love it when people beat us to watching these and recording them and post about it on Instagram.
Right.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, like I was totally, I did not know what to expect. I had heard some people say like, oh, it's pretty good, and I was okay, whatever. But like, it's Psycho, and yeah, it's fine. You just like don't expect it to be Psycho, and you'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like it's let it be its own thing, and it's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's a lot of fun.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But moving on next, we got Psycho 3, which is directed by Anthony Perkins.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure we'll get into it more, but I know that he was miffed that he was not cut in on the profits of Psycho 2.
Oh.
And so a big thing was, hey, if you ain't going to pay me, let me direct. So
Psycho 3 is not going to be about a guy who got screwed over on some deal and is going to murder a bunch of people.
There you go. Yeah. So, yeah, next week will be Psycho 3, or in 2 weeks or whenever we put this up. But in the meantime, what is going on over at John and Alex Hate Stuff?
Coming up on John and Alex Hate Stuff, we are going to spend some time on the beach that makes you old. Going to watch and talk about M. Night Shyamalan's Old. So check that out.
And if you like spooky stories, check out Please Leave. We just hit our 50th story over there. We've been building that thing up for a while. I just did one. Maybe I announced it last time.
You did.
So
that's okay.
Feels
it's
a little
cool.
Self-serving, but
it's cool. It's fun. It was a fun story.
Yeah, we did a bunch of stuff over there, and I did a story based on my grandfather and his time at NASA, and may or may not have heard or seen little green and gray aliens over there at his time,
which is
at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base,
which is perfect. I mean, this won't come out right away, but as we're recording this, they claim to have found biologics or whatever UFO stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
I still contend it's just Wile E. Coyote taped to an Acme rocket, but whatever.
I mean, if they found him, I would be happy.
Yeah, I would get some closure on the whole thing.
Exactly. Let him rest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, check out our other shows in the meantime. And if you want to write to us to ask us any questions or comments or, ask us questions that we can answer on the air, please do so at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. We can start doing a little mailbag section if people are curious about anything else that we have that we can pontificate about at the end of each show.
Give us some suggestions of what to watch next.
Exactly. We love that kind of stuff. So until then, next week, it'll be Psycho 3. Be on the lookout on Instagram. That's where we mainly post most of our stuff. And until then, I'll just say good night.
Good night.
This has been a Two Penguins Media production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod and on Twitter at hurtabit. Email us at thismayhurtabit@gmail.com. And if you are so inclined, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.